we say improv, and we know this is a comedy, and a very big comedy with a lot of like big set pieces and shocking scenes, but the core of it has to be real, and it has to feel real on screen, but also, of course, you have to come off like a real person to the actual real person you're with who thinks you're real. So
hello, and welcome back to The Director's Cut, brought to you by the Directors Guild of America. Today's episode takes us behind the scenes of director Jason Woliner's new comedy, Borat Subsequent Moviefilm. Released from prison for bringing shame to his country, Kazakh funnyman Borat risks life and limb when he returns to America with his 15-year-old daughter. In addition to Borat Subsequent Moviefilm, Mr. Woliner's directorial credits include Aziz Ansari and Patton Oswalt comedy specials, and episodes of the series Unconventional, What We Do in the Shadows, Last Man on Earth, Eagle Heart, New Girl, and Funny or Die Presents. Mr. Woliner spoke with director Phil Lord about filming Borat Subsequent Moviefilm in front of a virtual audience. Listen on for their spoiler-filled conversation.
My name is Phil Lord, and our guest is Jason Woliner, director of Borat Subsequent Moviefilm, you're going to have to tell us the rest of the title, my friend.
Oh man, there's a few titles. That'd be pretty embarrassing if I didn't remember the title of the movie.
You don't have to. I wouldn't put you on the spot like that. I wouldn't dare.
Delivery of prodigious bribe to make benefit disgraced formerly great nation of Kazakhstan, something like that. It changes, I think,
it seems
times in the course of the movie, and we only locked it probably about a week before the movie came out. So yeah, it was evolving quite a bit.
Much like the movie itself. Will you walk these nice folks through kind of how you came into this project?
Sure. I met Sasha a few times. I had talked to him about directing. He did a show called Who is America on Showtime a few years ago. And I talked to him about that, and the timing didn't work out. I was kind of involved with this other thing, but we still wanted to work together. And he called me, or I got an email asking if I would want to meet with him about his new movie, and they didn't say what it was. But I said, yeah, sure. And they sent me the script, and it didn't say Borat anywhere, and it didn't say Kazakhstan. Didn't have anything, but it was all code.
Computer code?
It was all just gibberish. It was all just like numbers. But no, it was a story about a journalist from Guatemala named Alexei, who was returning to America after a successful first movie. So I figured it out pretty quickly, and then met with him, and then basically had this. I just came in very bold, and I was like, "Look, I think the first one is the funniest movie ever. It's probably a mistake to do this. It's probably like there's like almost the best case scenario is that it's like forgettable, and the worst case scenario is that it's hugely embarrassing, ruins the legacy of this great thing you made, and it's just a real bummer." And the idea of he had already had a lot of the structure was there. The idea of having a daughter. I was like, yeah, that could be really bad too. I was like, if we don't cast the right person, that's going to be really corny. Because if someone's not good, if someone's not right doing that next to you, it's going to throw off the whole thing. And then he also wanted to kind of do something and put it out before the election and make a real statement. So I was like, yeah, everything about this movie could be a disaster, and I know, Phil, I think you share this instinct. The fact there's like a 1% chance that something could work makes you just like dive right for it. It's like, yeah, if it's probably going to not work at all. But if it could, yeah, that would be the thing. Yeah, that could be a lot of fun.
Well, so Spike called me right around that time and said, I'm meeting a couple of filmmakers about this thing. And he asked me about you, and I said, the thing about Jason, first of all, no one will work harder, but this is a suicide mission, and no one will embrace this and enjoy it more than Jason will.
Thank you.
and it's true. And no one, and I also told him no one is more interested in people. And that's what I thought was really remarkable about the movie, is that while being insane and a crazy endeavor for lots of reasons that we'll get into. It's also incredibly humane. And it seemed like that was a really intentional approach.
That was something I was saying from like when I came in there, they were talking about the real people that would be in the movie and calling them targets. And one of the first things I said was, why don't we call them guests? And they were also coming from Who's America, where there's a lot of like high profile political figures. And it was a much more about kind of getting people. And one thing I thought, what do you do with Borat in 2020? Because, he's already done so much amazing work kind of revealing this darkness and ugliness and things. And I was saying from the beginning, and they, everyone was on board pretty quickly as we got excited about it. So the kind of the more surprising thing would be to find opportunities to find humanity, reveal goodness in people, reveal kindness and patience, and to try to do that, but also make it, really funny. But just to find a new angle that you're not just kind of getting people. So, and then there's that as well too. So, but just at least to have a balance felt like a way to take it into a fresh place. And then also, with this opportunity of this story with him and the daughter, see if we could take a movie like this and do something that gets you to actually invest in the story, which is a challenge because you kind of watch a movie with, there's so few movies in this style, but you watch it in a very specific way with this conceptual thing going on in your head where someone is real, they're not in on it. He's a character, she's a character. And it's a challenge to get a viewer, I think, to kind of go from that watching mode to like I'm invested mode. And that was something the whole time we had to figure out how much of that and a lot of the edit was about how long those scenes could be between the two of them versus getting back to these kind of hijinks in the real world.
You really get into the fine points of the suspension of disbelief and like meta narratives, because as you say, you're thinking about the movie as like, there's Sasha, like a famous comedian, and he's like putting himself out here and he's doing these kind of pranks. And then there's also this story that I know is like made up as sort of glue material, and yet it becomes the thing that kind of takes over the movie. And I wonder how soon in the process you realized that this kind of romantic comedy between the two of them was going to be the thing that with the engine that drove everything.
That was really from the beginning. That was the goal. And that was something they were talking about even before I was on board. They were watching It Happen One Night a lot and just even thinking of the climax, what became the Rudy scene in terms of something like The Graduate and trying to stop the wedding and to see if you can do something like that. That's something he hadn't done before, I don't think, is to do kind of a climactic scene like that with a real person who's kind of an unwitting participant that has the same emotional stakes you'd have in a quote unquote normal movie.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Do you want to talk about casting Maria in this role?
Yeah, she was a crazy find. We watched hundreds and hundreds of tapes and I think about 600 auditions from all over the world, all over Eastern Europe. And then also a lot of amazing actors and improvisers and professional clowns and weightlifters here. We had every idea of what this character could be, and then it was just Maria was a self-tape that she recorded in the middle of the night after she had just graduated from I think acting school. It was like right after her graduation, she came home in her attic and did this really funny monologue that just struck me as I just thought she had something. It felt real, and it was also she was very effortlessly funny. And it was just her. It was based on something we'd written and given to her about bragging how your cage is nicer than all the other girls' cages in the village, and how you smoke a cigarette and make fun of a dog because oh, you stupid dog, you don't know how to smoke. And she made that up, and it's oh, that's such a weird specific thing. And so from that, we had her tape a little more, and we flew her to England and had her. Basically, the only way you can test a role like this is basically by doing one of these shoots. So they had to kind of do the whole thing of booking real people who thought they were doing a documentary. This stuff will probably never see the light of day, but it's as involved as a regular shoot. And so we shot some stuff with her in England. Then Sasha and I came to England and did kind of a more traditional chemistry test between the two of them with the breakup scene. And we both kind of got emotional. We're like, wow, yeah, she can really do it all. But she was, because of visa stuff, we had no rehearsal time with her. So because we were shooting right away, it took like 6 weeks to get her approved to come here. I think 2 days later, she was shooting with the babysitter for the whole day without a safety net or anything. So she's pretty remarkable. Yeah.
Yeah. What is it like talking about a performance with her in that scenario?
We did a little bit of kind of traditional Western improv training with her, of just to be very clear, before we knew her. I mean, we wouldn't, now that I know her, you didn't really need to, but just to kind of talk through, we say improv, and we know this is a comedy, and a very big comedy with a lot of like big set pieces and shocking scenes, but the core of it has to be real, and it has to feel real on screen, but also, of course, you have to come off like a real person to the actual real person you're with who thinks you're real. So, Ant Hines and Peter Bainham and the other writers would come up with hundreds of lines for her and for Sasha. They would memorize before they would go in, and just we'd rehearse every scene the night before, and then kind of cross out lines or come up with new lines or come up with new props or ideas. And she'd just spend all night memorizing it, and then just kind of wing it and be out there. But it was, one line that just sounds too much like a written joke, and the whole thing is kind of blown, or someone could start wondering, hey, what is this? Something sounds a little too comedy, a little too perfect. And so a lot of it was about like, don't worry about being funny. Here's the material, but you have to just do it. You have to just be a real person with these people. Yeah.
It's amazing. And now she's like on, the Oscar circuit for her performance.
I did say the first day we shot with her it was just this scene in the movie that's about 20 seconds where they're in a hair salon, and the hairstylist like, can I see your hair? And she like flashes her, and it's just like this one kind of awkward moment, and then she does her hair, and she was like, did I do okay? The first day? And I was like, yeah, I think you're probably gonna get nominated for an Oscar for that. And I started saying it to people. I was like, yeah, I just have a weird hunch. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen. But I had a hunch from the first day that people would see how remarkable what she was doing is, especially because she's alongside him, who's the only person in the world that really does this. And she's doing what he does and adding to scenes and getting laughs that are just as big as what he's getting, but also able to do this like emotional heavy lifting. And it's not jarring. You're not suddenly watching a different movie, that it all kind of connects is pretty incredible for both of them. Their performances are pretty incredible.
I really noticed in the scene when she goes to like the bakery and wants to and accidentally eats the little plastic baby. And the fact that like she is putting Sasha on his heels in a way where he's like no longer in control of the scene. And it's so exciting to watch because you're so used to that for him, that he's in charge and he's driving it. And suddenly there's somebody else like pitching off-speed pitches, and he's got to like deal with it. And so spontaneous. It's really electrifying when you see that.
Yeah, that's great that you say that, because that was our hope, is that she would add an element of chaos that kind of could, because he is Sasha, he's not the same person he was when he made Borat. Yeah, like, comedy fans already knew him, but he was pretty much not very well known in America. He's a different person now. He's one of the most famous people around. He's coming at this from a much higher stakes position. And in moments like that, she's able to like make him vulnerable again, or take control away from him. That was really interesting to watch. And yeah, no, that's great. I mean, we did so much kind of workshopping and rehearsing to try to figure out what their dynamic was. And are they just two kind of idiots echoing each other? And you see a little bit of that in, they're in the makeup store, and she's eating lipstick, and then he grabs it, he eats lipstick. And so that's just kind of like, and he's like a trained clown, actually. He went to clown school, and he knows all this theoretical stuff about clowning, and he would talk through that stuff. But, part of that is just, you have two idiots and they're both completely idiot. And then you have another version where, in scenes like that, where you have dynamics, and he's an idiot, but he's assuming authority. And so it's like one type of idiot with another type of idiot. And so the movie became a mix of that. We tried to kind of narrow in on a tone, but a lot of it was very experimental along the way.
Yeah, of course. And he becomes a dad sometimes. That's what I really like about him. He's like, okay, he's like, no, she needs to have the cupcake. He's defeated by her.
He is, and he's a real dad of 3 young kids in real life, and I'm sure, and he wasn't back then, and I'm sure that is something that he was able to use.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. So I hope everyone who's listening can appreciate the level of difficulty of making a comedy sequel. It is, you're basically trying to sequelize something that is such a surprise and becomes a sensation because it's coming out of left field. And you can't believe something like this exists because nothing like this has ever existed before. Then you're saying, let's do that again. And I thought you were really successful at essentially finding a whole new set of moves. And this movie, you want to talk about like how this movie evolved in edit to become really more of a story than anything else.
Yeah, it kept evolving, but yeah, the challenge, no, thanks, Phil, because you and Chris, obviously, 22 Jump Street made one of the best comedy sequels ever. And it is hard because you're right. So much of comedy, especially Borat, so much of that was like a nationwide shock of like, oh my God, look at this incredible thing. Everyone was watching it when it came out. Everyone remembers seeing it in a theater. And it was so fresh and new. And even though it was a format that people weren't familiar with, everyone got it right away. And now people know what it is. They know the moves a lot more. Even though Sacha hasn't done a lot of stuff like that. It's not like he went and made 10 movies like that. It still became so much part of the culture and kind of went on to influence other things that everyone's familiar with it. So we're like, well, we're not gonna have that shock element, and we're not gonna have the kind of innocent feeling that the first one had, because we're in a very different world. And that was why he wanted to bring the character back, is to try to do something new with it, is to say, well, what is Borat in a world? What I said to him, I was like, I think you want to bring this back because Trump is the only person who has beaten you at revealing the ugliest parts of America. I think there's jealousy there, which is why he had to like come back and weigh in, because it's a different world. We're living in this really horrifyingly dark cartoon right now that is so absurd. It's not just bad, it's like absurd, or almost like you look at Rudy Giuliani's month after this movie came out, and Four Seasons landscaping, and just all these details that feel written by comedy writers that have just bled into the real world.
Yeah, you have the most coherent scene of Rudy Giuliani of the year. That's an incredible feat of direction, that you could make sense of words that were coming out of his mouth.
Right, that was like his peak. That was the scene in our movie was the most dignified he was like all month.
It's incredible. Oh my Lord. I know. And it's interesting, like that first movie has a lot to do with trying to awaken us to our latent perversions and our racism and our sexism and our anti-Semitism. And now that stuff is like so present that the movie really feels like it's waking you up to something else. It's waking you up to our humanity in some way.
I was hoping for that, and there were things. Even Jim and Jerry, the two Trumpy guys that he lives with, those guys. We went into that house. He and I both lived in that house for days, and went in with a lot of ideas of very aggressive bits that we would do, of stuff that was like potentially going to blow it up, of really tormenting these guys who we hadn't met yet, who are just like theoretical to us, the team that kind of finds real people. It's like, we have these guys, we think we can set it up and engineer it that you can live with them, and we'll mount some cameras and we can get it all set up. And we figure out how to do that. And we're like, okay, let's really kind of mess with these guys. And then as soon as we were into it, we, discovered they were sitting around one night and he's saying all of this misogynist stuff about his daughter and kind of absurd things. And these guys were actually really correcting him. And not only about the kind of cartoony stuff, but saying, no, here we treat women equally. No, women can do anything. Like, they're like not really saying what we expected these guys to say, actually like being much more feminist than we expected. And so we're like, okay, maybe we won't do the thing where he comes in to that guy's bedroom naked tonight. or maybe he won't come into the shower when the guy's taking a shower. So like we started pulling back on these more aggressive bits, because we're like, actually an interesting thing is happening, which is that these guys really started caring about him, caring about helping him find his daughter. And we were like, well, maybe we'll be able to do something where we can show these are not necessarily evil people. Their brains have been poisoned by Trump, by the internet, by social media, by Facebook and Fox News and all of these forces. And hopefully that's the point that came across when you see those guys and they're not just ridiculed, and they're actually likable guys. I mean, right now, post January 6th, it's hard to even talk about it, but it is important to remember that, everyone thinks they're doing the right thing, and some people just have truly wrong information.
Yes, and I thought a lot about that this week, about how those folks at the Capitol were that some of them were just kind of like regular people who had been really deeply misled for a really long time and were horribly confused.
Yeah.
And I thought about your movie, and I thought about those two guys and how lovely it was to spend 20 minutes with them.
What's crazy, and we have days of material of those guys, and hopefully we'll figure out a way to put that out, because it was interesting just watching them live together and make breakfast and just have all this time together. But I was watching some of that footage this week. I was watching an interview with the guy Jim, and it was just one of these interviews where sometimes like we wanted to rehearse, or kind of me and the writers and Sasha would kind of get together and figure out, okay, what do we want to do in the next hour? So we would distract the guys. We would take them outside of the house and do an interview, and just about kind of boilerplate stuff. And a lot of it was just kind of parroting Fox News talking points. But they were like, are you worried at all, what's going to happen if Biden wins? And the guy starts talking about it. He's like, yeah, if Biden wins, there could be violence. He goes, look, I don't want there to be violence, but I'm going to do what I have to do if the election is stolen. And just basically predicts, this was last January. This is a full year ago. And he might as well have been describing what happened last week after the fact. So in that world that, people like us, I think, even though we're aware, are still sheltered from a lot of that. And also the 24 hours of being told your election's been stolen, you have to do something, being told by the president, you have to do something, you can't be weak. That it's like, oh, these guys have been in that reality for years. That this was a crazy thing to watch, but it's the most obvious thing in hindsight. This was going to happen. Yeah.
Tell me what it was like, how you found those guys. And you keep saying that you were living in the cabin with them, but like, what was it? I want to get underneath like the level of difficulty and the mortal danger that you decided to put yourself in.
That was actually one of the least dangerous situations. That might be the least dangerous situation, because we had, so the team that finds people, they found these guys. They have ways, very kind of subtle ways of determining whether or not these real people are aware of Sasha, aware of Borat, and had found these guys, and also had a third guy, actually, another guy that was going to be living with them. And we have this whole process by which, we do kind of a final check to make sure they don't know who he is, and just kind of let them see him for a moment. And if they have a certain look in their eye, or if they say, and it only happened a few times where we're shooting the movie, the team was really good about making sure that by the time we got people, they were pretty safe, that we were pretty certain they didn't know. But then they met him, and we were setting up cameras, and then one guy goes, that's who he looks like. He looks like that Borat guy. Because we weren't using the name Borat, obviously. We don't say that out loud because we don't want someone to Google it afterwards and then try to go public. And so so we give him another name, and then we flipped out, and we had to figure out a way to separate that guy and get him away without him understanding why. And I mean, but otherwise, that was just, we had set up the house and we had figured it out, and they had booked those guys and just kind of moved in. The hardest part was was we knew that, we had this rally that we were going to, this gun rally, and that was going to be, we were going to live in the house for a few days. We were going to, engineer it so that they found Tutar on the computer that we had set up, so that when they turned it on, that video clip would be on the website that was there. And hopefully, we were hoping they would recognize that it was the daughter that he had showed them in pictures. And the rally was the next morning. And so, that was the most difficult part. Was this is during COVID. There are no, any meetings are over Zoom, and there was so much energy put into making sure the house went well and that we were ready in different scenarios, and we had all these things planned, and we kind of had to be fluid and keep moving. But to go right from that to this gun rally, where we had, spent months kind of infiltrating this group, giving them money so that we could have access to the stage. Obviously, they didn't know why. And then making it so that he could go on and sing that song and make it all kind of feel organic and natural. So, and then shoot all that stuff. You know, this you can't tell from watching the scene, but the stuff in public, when they find Tudor and try to tell her, oh, your dad's looking for you, that was all what we call covert cameras. That's all just operators with like backpack cameras and just like little, like no one's holding a camera there because we don't want people looking at cameras being like, what's this, a shoot? So any scene like that in public had to be shot completely invisibly. So there weren't any easy days on
No.
and then that one they chased us out of, that's not in the movie either, but we had an escape vehicle. He sang that song for I think about 13 minutes. They figured out it was him. They stormed the stage to try to kill him. Someone pulled a gun. We had security who was quick enough, and he got out of there. I was waiting right behind. We hopped into this van and took off, or tried to take off, and they surrounded it. There's this crazy clip that Sasha put it on Twitter. But yeah, they surrounded our van, and they pulled the door open. You see him, and remember, he's in like a 70-pound fat suit. He's dressed like a cartoon hillbilly, and he's like holding onto this door like for his life as these guys are like, we know it's you, Sasha, come out. They're trying to drag him out. Yeah, that was one of the dicier ones.
It's so crazy. It's like you're making like a comedy. You're also like interacting with real people. The closest thing I can think of is like Nomadland. Where you're just sort of like, yeah, we're gonna hang out with these real people and we're gonna like take it as, we're gonna see what happens. It's straight comedy, but it's also total experimental, really groovy neorealist filmmaking at the same time.
Yeah, we and in a lot of ways a documentary too, because we really would, we'd have ideas of how we wanted scenes to go, but we would, if things went in one direction, it would definitely come and impact the storyline later. We call things back, and that if something would happen on a shoot and be like, oh, we can reference that later or change the story and stuff. So it really did evolve a lot. Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Like, how do you? One of the things I think about a lot is that if you got into directing because you like to be in control, like you'd need a different job, right? But
yeah.
we have built up this kind of idea of like the director is completely in control of his film. This movie is the story. You're in control of the story, but you're not in control of anything else. Like, tell me how you create an environment on set where like things are directed, people know what they're doing or supposed to accomplish, but you're still really open to this. And I imagine, your roots, not if you all don't know, Jason has like the best credits in comedy and came up with Human Giant and has directed every, great comedian. How does that experience kind of, fold into this?
There's something, right? There's an element of just letting really funny people do what they do best and create that. And that, on this, there was just a lot of rehearsal and also giving them as much comfort as possible within the parameters of a very chaotic, uncontrollable situation. But, because we only had those two actors and Sasha is Sasha and kind of, he has his process and knows exactly what he does and kind of how to shape these scenes. A lot of times we would sneak off to a corner or just, I would get there first and we'd have the cameras casual, and there's a lot of reality setting before we're actually going so that it's not just boom into craziness with people, because we're not shooting with stupid people. These are all smart people. They just haven't heard of Borat. And so there's a lot of kind of figuring out, introducing him, then he and I kind of can quietly, while they're miking the real person, we're talking about, okay, well, this, that, and that, and I think this, you might want to do that, and figure out like, and then during the scene, little breaks where we kind of confer and figure things out. And, there are no second takes in this kind of thing. So it's all communicated with like glances. Sometimes you'll hold up a piece of paper with a note on it or say, you might want to hit that thing. Or if there's a joke that we loved that he hadn't figured out a way to work in yet, remind him of that. But with the real people, it was, the most important thing was that it wasn't a reality show, that people weren't giving us what necessarily they thought we wanted. That there were a few times we went into someone's house and they were too kind of reality trained and too quippy, and it just doesn't work when someone is so performative. A lot of it, it's about the same way with any kind of working with an actor is giving, permission to do something. It's just like you can, to the babysitter, never told her what to say. And she was so good that people thought she was an actor. People thought it was scripted because she's so perfect.
I was sure she was an actor.
Yeah, that's
when
right.
I saw that stuff, I was absolutely sure. And you told me that it was you. I mean, where did she come from? You said that was very early in the shoot.
That was the first week, yeah. And she was they had found her, they had reached out to a church in Oklahoma and talked about, not saying exactly what the project was, but talked about the type of project and the type of people we were hoping to have in it. And we saw her tape and we're like, yeah, she seems great. And sometimes we would shoot scenes with multiple people. As soon as we started with her, we're like, oh, this is it. This is magic. And she's just incredible. And there were times that the only thing I would do with her is just remind her it was okay to say what she wanted to say, because she was so polite that when she didn't, when Tutar's like, I'm going to go have plastic surgery, and she was clearly shocked by it, she was just kind of say, oh, okay, didn't say anything. And she's like, what do you want me to do? I was like, do whatever you're comfortable with, but it's okay if you're honest with her. That's it. It's just kind of giving real people permission to be like, to react in a real way and not worry about offending anybody. She was worried about the girl's dad, Borat, seeing it, and she didn't want to, offend him. And I was like, don't worry about that. He's not going to, see this, or we'll take care of that, or I'll talk to him. And that was it. It was just kind of allowing people to be them, figuring out how to kind of help people be themselves on camera.
Yeah, but like, what an incredible human being that she was just worried about.
She's amazing. Yeah, she's so amazing. And, she came back, because some of the things, she was so amazing after that first day that we were like, you know what, let's kind of keep in touch with her, give her updates. We might want to bring her back, because the scene where he goes back to her and realizes there that he loves his daughter was not originally part of the script. We had another idea. It was kind of a placeholder scene where he would be in a therapist's office. And I had always kind of pushed against it, because I thought in that moment of the movie, this kind of sit down scene with a stranger, you don't want to be kind of in that. It just felt wrong for the climax of the movie to do kind of another interview scene. And then at a certain point, right at the very end, it was right when we went back to shooting after the kind of COVID lockdown break, they came up with, let's see if we can get Janice, the babysitter, back and see if we can make that happen there. If we can, have him go back to get something from her, and then he'll realize that there, and because we had fallen in love with her so much, and it was good that she kind of came forward, I think, because it made so clear that she was real. She was a real person. It wasn't, she's said the truth in all these interviews, is that we didn't put her up to anything. We didn't give her lines. And she completely thought it was real, and now she's happy with the whole experience.
Really, that's such a great coda to it, that she is really like pleased with how it worked out.
Yeah,
she comes off great in the movie, and really, there are a few people like her. I thought the guys in the cabin and the women in the synagogue were just so inspiring. It just makes you go like, maybe we're going to be okay at some point.
The synagogue was, emotionally probably the toughest day, because that was dicey. That was one of those scenes. It was like, well, they could get, we're talking about a Holocaust survivor, and he's coming in looking like an absurd caricature of basically a Nazi version of a Jew. And we're like, yeah, this could go very, very badly. and that was another one where Judith, who's sadly no longer with us, saw him, and look, she'd been through the Holocaust. This is not going to rattle her. Like, that was what I realized. It was like, oh.
He responded with love. That was so interesting.
No, I started crying there afterwards, because I was like, oh my God, the way she responded to this, like, absurd fool and what he was saying and what he was doing. And she just responded with such dignity and love and kindness and patience. And that was one of those scenes that came out just 1,000 times better than we had hoped. And then afterwards, that was the only time where we revealed basically what it was, because we didn't want them going home with questions. And so we're like, look, this is a satirical thing. That is a Jewish actor. this is about educating people that the Holocaust happened, because we learned this absurdly high figure of young people who don't believe the Holocaust happened or don't know about it. And we wanted to do this, very extreme scene, a very kind of shocking scene that would, highlight a survivor such as you and make it clear. And she not only understood it, but she was helping us explain it to her friend Doris in a way that was so much more eloquent than I was saying it, where she was, because her friend was a little bit annoyed. She's like, well, I wish you told us this up front. We're like, well, the way we do these scenes is we just kind of let them happen. And then, we were always going to tell you. And then Judith was like, she's like, why couldn't you just do a lecture or something? And Judith told her friend, no one would watch that. No one wants to see something dry and tell you that the Holocaust happened. You have to, she's like, to get young people to pay attention to this, you have to do something kind of over the top like this. And yeah, I mean, I think she was right. And no, she was incredible.
But it's the only way to witness the spontaneous love that a person can show a stranger that doesn't deserve it,
That really does not deserve it.
And just the deep, I thought a lot about that this month, about how that African Americans in Georgia saved this country, and really, and it can only be out of like a deep love of a country that doesn't deserve it. And I thought that was on display over and over and over again in this movie that is insanely, surprisingly life-affirming, and one of my favorite movies of the year, because it just keeps falling back on this kindness. And who would have thought that it would be just as funny as being mean?
I was hoping, yeah, it's so, we all feel so bad all the time now. We didn't feel like, it wasn't like this in 2006, where we were all walking around every day acknowledging that all of us felt bad all the time. even before COVID, it was like, yeah, this is a bad feeling time. And so it just felt like it wouldn't make sense to, if that was the angle again, if it was about just revealing ugliness and shocking people, yeah. So that was, we were hoping for that. I loved Who Is America. I thought it was a great show. It was hilarious and it was brutal. It didn't make me feel good. And so that was the thing I kind of came into this, is say to do a movie that people are going to watch and love and want to share with their friends and have, this kind of big special experience. I was like, I think we really need to kind of lean into the stuff that's ultimately going to not leave people feeling bad or sour about how things are. Feeling alert, feeling like certainly there's, at that end, the kind of last frame is the two of them hugging on the right side of the screen of this kind of heartwarming moment. And on the left side of the screen, it's like these caricatures of Americans killing Dr. Fauci holding a vaccine syringe. So you kind of are hitting both angles in that last moment.
And I will say, I truly cried. I've seen this movie 3 or 4 times, and that moment always makes me go. I think it's because, they're so cute together, and you're like, I can't believe it. And you've earned this kind of moment where it's almost like the veil on Sasha almost drops a little bit, and the character becomes ever so slightly more grounded, and he's just there with her, and you just kind of like, this is beautiful.
Well, that's so nice of you to say. I mean, yeah, that's the kind of thing where if we had screwed it up, it would have been just pandering, I think, and just like embarrassing. So, yeah, it's hard to there's not a lot of heartwarming moments that you feel for him, but it's a very different thing in the first movie. And certainly Bruno is a much colder movie. And Sasha's definitely done emotional acting work, tons of it, and great work, but not in one of these movies, what he calls his undercover movies. So it was an attempt at something new.
What was it like? How did you approach the more narrative sequences? Like, did you have to shoot them worse?
Yeah.
Make them fit with other stuff? What was it like thinking about that?
Yeah, because we didn't want it to suddenly look better, suddenly look like very cinematic. So, the whole look of the movie is based on work Sasha's done and the work Larry Charles did in the first one. And, and it's amazing and it's perfect for this, which is that you don't see any of the kind of filmmaking. You feel a guy with a kind of ENG shoulder-mounted camera swinging around covering it. There's a lot of planning. There's a lot of very intentional decisions about when he's interviewing someone who, we have a certain amount of an angle on them, we have eyes on them, we're panning to them after the question for the reaction. There's a lot of planning. It's not as kind of haphazard as it seems. It's very intentional, but and then a lot of the task in these written scenes was to try to make it feel alive and not just suddenly like 2 cameras or 3 cameras kind of planted. And the takes we would typically use is we would shoot a few rehearsals where we'd figure out the blocking and then just kind of say, okay, abandon your positions and just don't get what you were getting, and you guys change it up and just try to get moments that mix it up, feel a little real, and catch the operators off guard so that it's not so kind of static feeling when we are back into kind of storytelling mode. And then the other thing, was just to like not light it at all, basically. there's put almost no lights up in the entire movie. Wow. And you literally would tell Sasha and Maria, like, now don't hit your marks. We're just be open to, and his process too, he's always coming up with new ideas and new jokes and whatever. And so that helps kind of keep things light on their feet for sure. And then the other thing in terms of editing is, the good thing is they're kind of, they're speaking real languages, but they're all speaking different languages. And so we were able to change the subtitles quite a bit to kind of, because a lot of those scenes have to come way down or change or hit a story point that we hadn't figured out exactly when we shot it. So like when they decide on Rudy in the car, like that scene where it's just them driving and she shows them the phone was originally about something completely different. And that was a thing in the edit that myself and Mike Giambra, the editor, were like, oh, what if they decide on Rudy in the car here? And kind of just because they were speaking in a language that didn't have to match the subtitles, we were able to do a lot of kind of emotional storyline tweaking stuff in that way. It's crazy. So the edit is like an incredibly involved part of this thing. Because how many feet of film were shot on this? That's a good question. Someone has that figure. It was hundreds and hundreds of hours. And we tried to watch everything, but it was an insane volume of stuff. And I'm sure cut after cut after cut and changing the order of things. It's so interesting because the movie is like really guided by a relationship story. And then it's also incredibly abstract. So there are scenes that could really go anywhere, but you had to figure out where they went based on their story, I imagine. Yeah, so much changed. Like originally, actually, the Mike Pence thing at CPAC was part of the climax at the end, that it was going to be the kind of the interview scene. He saves her, he runs out with her, and then runs into CPAC, and the whole thing was going to happen at CPAC. Or originally we had talked about it being at the RNC when that was like before COVID, before everything had changed. Right. And so that was something in editing. We had the idea, well, what if we pull that up to kind of be this kind of first act turning point, and that's when things kind of when it changes, when they fail, that's when it changes to Rudy. And so a lot of those decisions were kind of made in the edit. But the edit, went on over the course of the year that we were shooting, and then when we were really done shooting, I think it was like 4 weeks from then till delivery to Amazon, and then it was out in like 3 weeks after that. You don't have time to have any jitters after that. That's so wild. COVID, how dramatically did it change, the movie, do you think? It changed a lot. It changed, it made it even more of a pain in the ass to make the movie. And, but also, what we did is we decided we locked down like everyone else for a few months. We waited for industry protocols and to kind of get our bearings and figure out if it was even possible to finish this movie in time. We talked about, well, do we just push it to next summer and pray that things are back to normal and hopefully theaters come back. But, the election was the deadline that we had always been trying to hit. And we decided ultimately we wanted to get it out by the election. That kind of was the most important thing. And so, structurally, the story, they were always going to split up at a certain point. And he was going to, have to look for her. Originally, he was going to team up with, we were talking about maybe doing like Men's Rights guys and, just some other type of guys and find her at some other. My cousin. yeah, probably. We were going to have similar events. Basically we decided, COVID could be another obstacle that keeps them from coming back together. And we knew we wanted to pair up with guys, and we're like, well, what if it's like kind of Trump supporter, QAnon kind of guys, and they have to log down together is even better. And so we just kind of incorporated it, but it didn't really change the structure of it so much as just the details within. We kind of made them work in a COVID world.
Oh my God, what is the what is I did at one point in this process I bumped into you and you had like frosted blonde hair.
Yeah.
Why did that happen?
I was Sasha thought it would be a good idea if I go undercover as well. Not because
what was your character?
Not because anyone. My character was just me, but not Jewish. Basically, he thought if I looked less Jewish, people in the Deep South would find me more trustworthy.
How did it go?
It completely worked. No one ever doubted anything I said. Either that, or I'm like have a true like sociopathic side. But I was blonde. My name was Chris, which I guess is short for Christ. And I was, dressed kind of preppy. And everyone always trusts me, even in like in the pregnancy crisis center scene where she eats the doll and we're at this place where they're talking to this pastor. And, that scene went on longer than it is in the movie. And there's jokes where, they're at a certain point, he'll push something and sometimes someone will be like, what is going on here? And part of my job in those situations is to kind of bring things back down to earth, convince someone it was just kind of a miscommunication. And, they'll like, so in that scene, the pastor at some point, Sasha said some joke that was like one bridge too jokey, or just started asking him questions about Donald Trump, trying to see what would happen. And the guy's like, excuse me. And he came out to me. So then first thing I do is act like I'm on the phone, because if I was watching the scene, I would be as shocked as this guy. So it's like, hey, Chris, can I talk to you? I was like, oh yeah, what's going on? Sorry, I haven't been watching. I've been just dealing with another shoot. And so the guy was like, he's like, I don't know what's going on, but that guy in there, something like, he's like, that guy is saying like a lot of weird, there's something weird. That guy's saying a lot of weird things. He's like, I think that guy might be pranking you, to me.
Oh, he was there to protect. Again, another kind person just trying to help out.
Yeah. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah. He's like, I wouldn't be surprised if that guy in the denim jacket had like a hidden camera on him or something. So not even thinking at all of like the 3 giant non-hidden Alexas that were in the room, not thinking at all that Chris could be part of this. The one time people turned on Chris was the debutante ball, which it was undeniable by the end that this was the setup, that the whole thing had been engineered. That, that's why people realized, it was late in the night and people have been drinking. But after that dance, people were confused, and then putting something together and be like, hang on, this whole night I think was about making us watch this dance. That's why there were 5 cameras there.
Right.
And so we get Sasha and Maria out. They're gone. This is in Macon, Georgia. We're trying to get the crew out. We get the footage out, and it's just about escaping. The police have been called. The police are on their way. I'm trying to get out of there. And I step out the back of this kind of beautiful historic house, and I just had this moment. I was like, I need to make sure. People were getting really angry, and I was like, I need to make sure everyone's safe. So I step back in the house and I hear upstairs guys running down the stairs going, where the is Chris? Like screaming. But my brain really like took a moment to be like, man, that Chris guy's in trouble. And then I was like, oh no, I'm Chris. I should get out of here. And
you forgot you were Chris.
Really, it was like a Looney Tunes cartoon or something. Like I really forgot that, they're talking about me. And just booked it, and one of the operators was still upstairs, so there were 8 guys pulling off their jackets coming to like beat me up. So that was the time where it was just too much for Chris to even
even blonde hair couldn't protect you.
No.
That's unbelievable. It's unbelievable the whole time that you're like stressing out, you're trying to keep the crew safe, yourself safe, Sasha safe. You're trying to make the bit work great. And then you're also playing a character in the meta story of like a director of like a documentary about some weird guy.
Yeah, no, there's a lot going on. And right, and we can't do second takes for anything. We can't, oftentimes we're chased out of places. We can't do pickups. Like the police were called so many times just because people were angry. People don't think you're making a comedy movie. They think you're trying to rob them or something. Like people are just confused. That's why they call the police, because we never do anything illegal. But when something weird happens, people just call the cops. So yeah, a lot of it was trying to.
We could make a different movie about that.
Trying to make sure we got enough stuff, but also trying to not get killed or beaten up. Yeah.
Well, you have succeeded at both. You're here. You're living and breathing. You survived. You single-handedly defeated Donald Trump.
Thank you. I'll personally take full credit for that.
And your whole crew. You've saved America. You certainly made my quarantine way better. And I can't thank you enough for making the movie. It really is one of my favorites of the year. And I've always loved working with you and thought you and Sasha are geniuses, and you proved me right. This is really a vindication for me.
That's exactly what it is. No, thanks so much. You were also, we had a very small pool of a few people we would call and be like, are we crazy? Is this a disaster? Is this going to work? For late night calls and frantic, and especially in editing. You were just such an important help in that stuff. And no, thanks so much.
Oh, I was really happy to be a part of it. Thanks for doing this. Thanks to the DJ for hosting us. And thanks to you nice folks for paying attention.
Yeah, thank you. I wish we could see you. I wish one day we'll do something like this in person. But to everyone watching, this means the world to me. Thank you so much for watching this. It's a real honor.
All right. Likewise, guys. Jason, we'll see you soon. Stay
Thanks,
safe, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Stay safe.
Thanks for listening to another DGA Q&A. If you'd like to hear more, The Director's Cut is available wherever you listen to podcasts. Stay tuned in the coming weeks as we bring you discussions of films from Spike Lee, Regina King, and Viggo Mortensen. And be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. We'd love to hear your feedback, and you can help fellow film buffs find the show. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time. This podcast is produced by the Directors Guild of America. Music is by Dan Wally.